Hey everybody, I'm going to take you step by step through the NetLab GNS3 work, and this is what we're going to do for our lab this week. This is going to get you building a small little network in GNS3, and so we're going to go to netlab.kilgore.edu. And this will be a little bit better video for you to follow along with than the one I did in class yesterday. So if you missed it or you need to go back and reference it, use this video instead. But you'll want to log into NetLab. There was one of you that has never logged in for some reason, and I'm not sure how that happened, being that you've been in our program for more than a semester. But if you log in and you don't know your NetLab password, let me know. I can reset it for you. But if it's your first time to log in, you're going to have a couple of more windows. You're going to have to verify your email address and set your time zone. Okay. If you've logged in before, no big deal. You're just going to make a new lab reservation for yourself and you schedule a lab. And so I'm walking you through the whole thing. You're only going to have like probably 2 classes here. And I got a whole bunch, but you're gonna make sure you do the networking 1358, and you should end up with 3 labs here. This NDG Network Plus lab is not working yet. We're getting that going. We're gonna focus on the GNS3 Packet Tracer lab. This is the graphical network simulator. Okay, so you go in there and then go ahead and choose the GNS3 pod that's in the lab. And you'll want to go ahead and schedule the lab for yourself. Pay attention when you do it, how many minutes you're scheduling for. Go ahead and schedule yourself more than what you think you need, because you can always end the reservation after. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a little more time. We got plenty of pods and plenty of room, and so don't make it like 5 hours. Just a little bit more time than you think you need, and then you can submit your reservation and go ahead and go in the lab. Now, what you're going to get to is you're going to get to Windows Desktop, and this Windows Desktop is going to have a version of Graphical Network Simulator installed on it. And so I'm going to show you what to do first. Now the VM is right here in this tab, GNS3 VM. We didn't name it anything crazy. Okay, so that gets you to a Windows desktop. And what I like to do on this is I like to go ahead and undock it and then maximize it. Now you got a nice full screen view. And so as soon as it renegotiates the resolution, now we're looking at the screen. Now you see GNS3 right here, this little gecko looking guy right there. We do have a full version of Packet Tracer on here, and it works just fine. So you can actually do Packet Tracer. GNS3 though is a much more full-featured network simulator because it's going to give us the communications and connections that allow us to incorporate various other router images, which we'll use today. So we're going to work with some MikroTik routers today. So when I open that up by double-clicking, the startup process will take a little bit, so I'm going to kind of walk you through this. First thing that will happen is this canvas will initialize. And then we get the server, which is going to start. Now we're going to get the VMware. The VMware workstation software is going to install. The GNS3 server VM. This is the server that's going to run our VM images. Okay, so whenever you choose a VM to install your elements in, you can choose this. If you choose this GNS3 VM, it'll be visible in the web browser. But now you can see that system booting up, and it's running Ubuntu. And there we go. There's our GNS3 virtual machine. We can actually look at its status by clicking on the link. I mean, well, I don't know if we can click that, but we can go to that website in our web browser and see the status of the server. So we don't need that. We can just minimize that, and then it's going to ask you to create a project. You don't have to name it anything special. You could just name it. I don't have any projects installed here, I don't think, except, well, maybe that one. Let's see. I don't know what that is. You can explore it if you want to, but just make a new project there. Okay, and all right. So as you can see, I got two servers. One is the server that's in this desktop, and one is the VM I just booted up. So if we choose, as we add things to our canvas, we can choose which server we use, and we'll just choose GNS3. It doesn't matter really which one you use. We're making really simple components here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and add a router image. So we're going to use two. We need a MikroTik router, and then we can use a Cisco router. All right. Now remember, routers are like hosts, right? Even though some documentation says that they're not. That's just not true. All right. Now we're going to put a virtual PC in there. We want to control something. And it's going to ask me, what server do you want to use? I'm just going to choose GNS3 because there's actually some software that's going to be running on this thing. And it's our PC emulation software. Okay? Now, I'm going to use a switch. And we want to use an Ethernet switch, not a hub. And we're going to go ahead and put its software under the GNS3 VM. And so now you see that I have these devices that I've added. Okay, so just basically do this, and then we want to create some links. So the cable's right here on the left, and I'm going to click, choose Ethernet, click, put that in Ethernet port 0, and I'm going to click here, go from Ethernet 1 to MikroTik, Ether 1, and I'm going to click here, and go from Ethernet 2 over to Ethernet 1 on router 1. And click here and go to Ethernet 0 on PC 1. So I'm basically building a LAN with two routers connected to a switch. So these routers are going to function just like they were PCs in this particular model. All right, so now you'll notice that the switch doesn't have a power switch. It's just automatically on. I can right click on it and I can get to the console of the switch. I think I can do that. Let's see. So it doesn't want me to go to the switch console. Alright, but right here we can show the labels. Now you see the interfaces are showing you which ones are which, and then I'm hiding them. This ultimately is how your diagram will end up looking. You'll show what interfaces are plugged into your global lab that you're drawing. Okay, so I'll need, if I click this, I'm pressing start on all of the nodes. So effectively that's the power button, okay? If I right click on each individual one, I can start the node individually. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it. And then notice here, this particular one, we have a console and an aux console, right? So that is something that is available in that particular model of router. This one here doesn't have an aux console because it doesn't have an aux port on it. Okay. Here's where I can configure some things. I don't want to mess with these, but I just want to show you what's there. Right, so I could put in some other equipment here in this particular router if I wanted to. Network module in M. Network module 1 Ethernet, 4 Ethernet, right? This one is a network, is a 1 Ethernet. Well, we could put in a 4 if we want to. Okay, there we go. We'll go ahead and do that. And so now, I don't know if you see that, now we have some more hardware in there. Ethernet 00 connected to switch 1 on port Ethernet 2. And I'm reading down to the bottom. Ether 10 is empty, Ether 11 is empty, Ether 12 is empty, Ether 13 is empty. So that 4-slot Ethernet card that we added, now we have some more ports. So if I wanted to go over here and drag another PC on there, I could. What we could do is we could actually build a whole entire other network attached to, now we have 4 Ethernet slots. So we could do that. Yeah. Okay. In order to get that reticle off of there, I just right-clicked. Now I could move this. So, basically what I have here, according to this router, is I have a routed network. One of these routers is going to end up being configured like a host. So, and then this one would also be a routed network too. Okay, we're just going to turn everything on. Sure you want to do that? Yeah. Alright, so what we have to do is now we have to use our virtual machine to turn everything on. We got our PCs on. We got our MikroTik router on. And if I click the console to all nodes, I'm going to get 4 little putty windows that are going to come up here. Alright. You can watch the router boot up. Cisco routers take a long time to boot up. But we'll go to these 2 routers right here. The Cisco and the MikroTik. Now notice I don't have anything in this window right here. There we go. There's our login. Okay. So in the MikroTik world, this is an image called a Cloud Hosted Router, CHR. And we're just going to log in with the admin and the blank password. So just press enter. Do you want to see the software license? Hit in. Change your password, whatever you want. I'm going to put in password. Now we're in to our MikroTik control panel. Our Cisco router is still booting up. Poor thing. They just take so long. Cisco had basically they were focused on licensing export for so long that they were worried about exporting licenses, and it was all they were banned from doing that by the government. So we couldn't export encryption, and they really took that seriously, and they should. Okay, so a lot of times there's hardware booted up slowly. If I want to make any one of these big, I can maximize it. I think what you'll see is you will see a real difference in the two configuration interfaces between the MikroTik and the Cisco. This PC interface is pretty weird. It's just kind of weird. It is a little bitty simulator that allows you to do quite a few things as a host. I'm going to press question mark to get help. And I can do a couple things, not too much. I can ping. I could set an IP. I can use a DHCP server. I can see my ARP. I can do a trace route. Not so much, right? It's not designed really to do that much. We're using the PC as a emulator, really, and so that's where it is. We want to be able to look at the ARP table and make sure it can get a DHCP lease, and we want to make sure that we can use ping. So nothing really great is going on here, except when we give our device an IP address. This is a little bit different than the emulators on Packet Tracer. Is when we do that, we have to use a CIDR notation. So I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to do IP and question mark. And here is the syntax for the command. And as you can see, I can give the IP command. I would give an address. I would give a mask and a gateway. Or the opposite would be true. I could give an address, a gateway, and a mask. It understands both. But the interesting thing here is that in the IP address, you would, if you don't spell out the mask, you put the slash notation in there. So we'll do this way. So IP, and I'll just do 10.20.30.5. I'll put in a mask. We'll make it a /24. And I don't necessarily have a gateway, so I don't have to use one. We don't need a gateway in order to do layer 2 communication. But so notice it went ahead and let me do that. Now I'm going to do another one, 10.20.30.5. And I'm just going to use the CIDR notation. And I'm going to give it a gateway of .1 because I can. I don't have to do that. Okay, and now I did that. And you also notice that I can, if I wanted to get an automatic address, I can choose DHCP. I can let it do IPv6. I can also do a DNS, right, to give it a DNS server. Those commands don't work. So we'll do show and help. And now you see I can do any of these commands. And if I just do show, it should default show me everything. But there is the command that allows me to see what my settings are. So I can see that I have the IP address 30.5. My gateway is 30.1. So probably what I will do is I will set up this one of these routers to be the gateway. And it doesn't really matter which one we set, because the routers act as hosts on the network. So what we'll do is we'll set up this MikroTik router to be the gateway. So I want to show you how it works. So what I have is instead of pressing question mark like I do on Cisco to get help, so if I'm over here at Cisco, I can press question mark and I can see the menu of all the different commands. I would highly recommend that you go in and look at some of those. MikroTik, I press tab. Okay, a little bit different interface, not too much different, but it also has color that the Cisco doesn't. So if I want to give an IP address to a router's interface, first of all, I want to show you how to see the interface. So we're going to type in interface, and I just tab completed that. And if I click print, or if I type print, now I can see the interfaces. And it has to be under the interface command. Alternatively, now I can get back to my main my main route two ways. I can double dot, which gets me back to the main. I can put 1//, and that gets me back to the main. At any time, if I want to execute a command that's at a different level in this router, I can use a / and I will be able to access any command that is available in this router by typing in the path. So pretty cool function. It's not exactly that way in Cisco land. So we're going to assign this particular router an IP address, and that is not in the interface menu. This is what the interface menu is, where we could work on the actual ports, and we actually do everything that we want to control on the port. So any software protocol that I want to use on a particular port, I can turn it on in the interface menu. Anything related to layer 3 is in the IP menu. So I'm going to go ahead and look at IP. And as you can see, that first command is address. So I'm going to go ahead and go in there, IP address. And I'm going to press tab. And one of the commands is add. All right, so we're going to do add, and I press tab. And if I press tab again, it tells me different things that I can do. So I'm going to add an address, and the address is going to be our gateway, 10, 20, 31. And I'm going to go ahead and do that in CIDR notation. So that way my net mask is implied. And we can just look and see, is there anything else we want to put in there? No. I don't need a network because I have CIDR notation. I can put in a comment. Okay. And I do have to tell it the port. Remember, I think it was Ethernet 0. Or Ethernet 1. Let's do 1. Okay. So now we can see, if we just do the command print, now we can see that we have interface Ether1. And I'm just going to go ahead and look at that interface. So I'm going to do /interface print. And as you can see, I have an R next to Ethernet 1, and that is a registered port. So that means that my connection is registered. So let me see if I can show. No, I can't. Okay, I got to do interface print detail. We're going to give that print command a little more information. We're going to ask it to print detail for us. And you can see how it turns green and purple. So it interprets what I'm writing, and it changes the color based on that. And we can see some other things about that. Not much, really. But you can see here, once that interface came up, that it actually put a timestamp on it. And another thing here, you've heard me talk about flagging interfaces in class. And so if I were to bring the link down and up, it would show a counter there. So what we can do is we can try that real quick. Let me go back, and I'm just going to right click on that, and I'm going to suspend it. And resume it. And now you see that the link down total is now 1. All right, so now we can see how many times that interface has flagged. All right, if I were to say, oh, this is a really crappy interface. For some reason, the port is not working right. It's keep blinking on and off. For whatever reason, I don't know. Is it the switch on the Cisco side? Is it the one on the MikroTik side? Not really sure. Now. Now you can see link down. That thing has gone down 4 times. Okay. So now we have a IP address on both our PC and our MikroTik router. And so I'm going to look at the IP submenu, and I'm going to look at the ARP table. Now I still got to do print on there, okay? So, all right. Now we don't have any ARP going on. If I haven't done anything yet, we haven't sent any packets. This network doesn't just broadcast packets randomly. All right, so we're going to go ahead and ping our PC2. And I may have to do it from the main menu. Yeah, ping 10.20.30.5. Well, there we go. To timeout. Now we got, let's see. No, it didn't work. We got nothing. But we do have some information here in our dynamic ARP table. All right, so let's just double check this. It's possible that I configured the wrong PC. Okay, I did. Look at that. All right, so let's go, and I configured PC3. It's on the other side of this router. I didn't do good. Okay, let me do PC1 now. All right, so we're going to do IP 10.20.30.4. We're just going to use CIDR notation to tell it it's a /24 network. We can do a gateway. Checking for duplicates. Alright, now let's look at our ARP table again. There's nothing there. We'll just go ahead and ping 10.20.34. Hey! Alright, there we go. And now we have a real ARP table entry. Alright, and it shows the MAC address of our computer that's on this side. Alright, as soon as that packet went out, the response came in, and we should be able to look at PC2. Now these, if I could open up a number of different consoles, so you want to make sure that you don't have like more than one open. But what will happen is, if I accidentally have two consoles open, it's going to echo. So no big deal there. Okay, so we'll do show IP. We don't have an IP address installed, so if I ping something, it's not going to work. Right, I get a timeout. So I got to do IP. I'll just make it 30.10. And now we can successfully ping our gateway. And what we should see is when we go down and look at our MikroTik router, and we print the ARP table, now we have both entries in there. We have our PC1 and PC2 in there. All right. So we built at this point successfully a small network. You would be able to configure the other devices. I will go show you real quick how to configure the Cisco device itself. It's a little bit different, and that'll be the last thing we do here. So I'm going to go into R1. And just to remember how to do a configuration, when we are in the standard, we have to go to enable mode. And then we do configure from the terminal, config T. Now we have our router configuration menu. And I have to set my router IP address. But in this case, I'm not setting a switch IP address like I would normally do. I'm just going to set an interface IP address. So let me show you how to do that. Show interface. Let's see. Show IP. Let's see. Oh, I can't do it in the configuration menu. I can. I have to do show. If I do the full command, now I'm going to see every interface and all of the statistics. I don't do that. Do show interface brief. Do show IP. Well, if I'm not doing that right. Okay. Exit. Now the scroll wheel works here. So you can use the scroll wheel. All right, we got to go into configure mode from the terminal. And now we can configure the interface. All right, so let's look at the difference between these two menus. The IP menu, if I could get in there. There we go. These are some things that I can do in the IP menu. Okay, so these are, remember, this is all configuration. All right, so my default gateway, right? I could set a default gateway on my router if I wanted to. This would be how the gateway I would use to communicate with my router. Right, the full set of commands are included in this particular router. All right, but what we're going to do in this case is we're going to actually, and I press Q to get out of that menu. I want to set on the interface. So I'm going to configure the interface. Now, in this particular case, if you remember, I added two interfaces to this router. So we're going to configure the Ethernet interface. And it was 0. Okay, so we have to do 0/0 to get into the internet configuration. Remember, the card that I added was 1.1/0. So if I exited that interface and I wanted to configure the other one, interface Ethernet 1.0, that's the other card. But we're going to put the IP address on interface Ethernet 0/0. And then if you see, now I can configure just the IP address. So we're going to go ahead and configure the IP. And I'm going to do this just so you can see the different commands. So I'm going to do IP address. And then a question mark. It tells me how to do it, right? I can do 10.20.30. I'm going to do a 2 here. Now, in this case, I have to do a net mask. I can't do a CIDR notation. Cisco does not like that. And I do exit. Exit again. Notice that the configuration command came through, and I can do write, overwrite, confirm, enter. Now my configuration is ready. I should be able to ping .2 from this PC. From PC2, not reachable. And so we have to ask the question, why is that? Ethernet 0/0, IP address 10.20.32. First of all, I got to make sure I didn't fat finger something. Okay. It's a /24. Oh, look at that. the interface is shut down. All right, so we're going to have to go in and turn the interface on. We're going to go into the interface menu, and we're going to type in no shut. All right. We want to go ahead and write that, and you see that the interface comes right on up. We should also be able to see that in our GNS3 simulator. I don't need all these. I'll leave that one open. So now the interface is green. By the way, I'm pressing the up arrow to access the last used command. Hey, there we go. Now we have some pinging. And we can go over here and print our ARP table again. We should have ARP on both unless the Cisco doesn't allow ARP. We'll ping from there. Notice it looks a little bit different when we ping on the Cisco interface versus the PC versus the MikroTik. We still didn't get an ARP entry. No, that's okay. All right. Success rate is 0%. Okay, so let's look at our show IP. We are 10.20.30.10. So let's ping 10.20.30.10. Ah, there we go. Look at that. Success. So now we have success 100% on that. We still didn't get an ARP table entry. That's okay. All right. So, but now we're able to ping from the router to the PC and vice versa. So that's really good. Now we have established basic connectivity between the devices, and I'll leave it up to you to put an IP address on the other devices. So we just do quit. We have to go back to our root folder here, and we can do quit. Close that. Same thing. And there you go. There's your little network. So that will help you. We want to reproduce this and be sure that you can get connectivity between PC1 and both devices, PC2 and both devices, and PC3 if you do it in the router. So, all right, thanks everybody. And just remember, we're on NetLab, so you got another panel open here. Remember, my screen is on this. I want to go ahead and on my reservation, I can end my reservation, and that will cancel it. All right. Enjoy doing the lab, and be sure to upload the screenshots of your successful ping in the assignment.